Chapter 3377. Against the barbarians, surrendering meant death. Not surrendering also meant death. At most, they would fight to the death. Furthermore, they had sworn on their life origins to be loyal to Lu Ming. They could not abandon Lu Ming and surrender alone. A bunch of ants, kneel down. Get down. The barbarians continued to attack like a cat catching a mouse. They did not kill and only injured the people Lu Ming brought. Damn it. Lu Ming roared as he charged forward with all his might. However, in such a situation, his strength was clearly very weak. When he was struck by the barbarian godlord's force, he coughed out large mouthfuls of blood as he retreated. Roar. At that moment, Myriad God let out a roar that resembled an ancient god. His body glowed, and the light condensed into ancient gods of different forms. He held the stone sword in his hand as sword chi surged and slashed at the void. The void distorted as a wormhole appeared. Myriad God had forcefully opened up another wormhole. Quick retreat. Myriad God roared as he coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. He had forced himself to open the wormhole and suffered a backlash. His injuries were worsening with every passing moment. Quick leave. Lu Ming roared as he gathered his subordinates, wanting them to leave through the wormhole. This move again. Do you think the same move will work? At that moment, the purple golden armored barbarian spoke coldly as a purple gold battle axe appeared in his hand. Boom. An extremely terrifying aura erupted from his body as he slashed out with the purple gold battle axe. A purple gold axe beam cleaved through the starry sky. The void tumbled as the starry sky was split into two. One could clearly see a passageway in the void being split into two. It was the wormhole opened by Myriad God. Boom. The wormhole opened by Myriad God exploded, sending shockwaves across the sky. Myriad God coughed out large mouthfuls of blood as cracks appeared on his body. With the wormhole destroyed, he suffered a devastating backlash and his injuries were extremely serious. Myriad God. Lu Ming was alarmed. Myriad God's injuries were more serious than the previous time. His aura was extremely weak and his face was as pale as a sheet. Lu Ming hurriedly rushed over and hugged Myriad God. A divine power enveloped Myriad God's body. Myriad God's injuries were too severe. If he continued floating in the cosmos, he would probably perish. Lu Ming used his divine power to protect the Pantheon. At this moment, the battle was completely one-sided. Lu Ming's subordinates were constantly injured. Without any strength to resist, they were captured and controlled by the barbarian tribe. The same was true for the Dark Ape Battle tribe. Almost all of them had been wiped out, and were now under the control of the barbarian tribe. Lu Ming, it looks like you won't be able to escape this time. Blue Merchant came to Lu Ming's side. His aura was also very weak. He was also injured and his soul force was weak. His eyes revealed a trace of helplessness. Since we can't leave, we'll just die together. Lu Ming's eyes revealed a ruthless look. He planned to open the purple copper coffin. No matter what would happen, he couldn't care less. At worst, they would just perish together. Suppress them for me. The barbarian tribe roared. They had too many experts. It was unknown how many Divine Lord experts had come. These existences were too strong. With a wave of their hands, they formed huge palms that suppressed Lu Ming's subordinates. About 5,000 people had fallen into the hands of the barbarian tribe. In the end, only Lu Ming, Blue Merchant, and Myriad God were left. Kid, you are the leader, right? Now that your subordinates have been wiped out, why aren't you kneeling and surrendering? The purple gold-armored barbarian tribe sneered. At this moment, the barbarian tribe army of more than 100,000 had surrounded Lu Ming's group. There was no way out. There was no way out. Surrender? Haha. Lu Ming sneered. If you want to kill me, you will have to pay the price in blood. With that, Lu Ming did not say anything else. He took out the purple copper coffin. Lan Shu, if there is a chance later, take Myriad God and escape. Lu Ming handed the Blue Merchant to Lu Ming. When the purple copper coffin was opened, Lu Ming did not know what would happen. Perhaps there would be a chance. If he could escape, then so be it. With that, Lu Ming did not say anything else. He suddenly pushed the lid of the purple copper coffin. Kacha. The lid of the purple copper coffin let out a kacha sound as it moved slightly. It was just a slight movement, but an unimaginable aura immediately spread out. At the same time, a roar came from the purple copper coffin. The entire starry sky shook slightly. At this moment, Lu Ming seemed to see an incomparably huge primordial god standing under the starry sky, raising its head and roaring. Not good. The barbarian tribe on the purple gold warship had the strongest cultivation and the sharpest spiritual perception. The moment the purple copper coffin opened, all his hair stood on end. A terrifying sense of danger rose in his heart. Retreat, retreat quickly. The barbarian in the purple gold armor roared without hesitation and retreated rapidly. The other barbarians were stunned and also retreated rapidly. You want to retreat? Stay here. A ferocious look flashed in Lu Ming's eyes. He exerted all his strength and pushed the lid again. Gotcha. The lid of the purple copper coffin was pushed open again. The terrifying aura surged out like a tide. Lu Ming spat out a mouthful of blood. His body shook violently. When the aura landed on his body, he felt as if his body was about to be torn apart. His bones made kacha-kacha sounds as if they were about to break. Waves of intense pain spread throughout Lu Ming's body. However, an even greater change happened. Myriad God, who was already extremely weak, suddenly let out a terrifying roar. His body emitted a dazzling bloody light, making him look completely red. He flew out from Blue Merchant's hand. His eyes were blood red and he kept roaring. Waves of terrifying aura were emitted from his body. His face kept twisting. Even his body kept twisting. It was extremely strange. It was as if he was about to split apart. Lu Ming was shocked. He did not know what was going on. Not good. Myriad God has been stimulated by the aura of the purple copper coffin. The bloodlines of dozens of primordial divine spirits in his body have gone berserk. If this continues, he will explode and die. Bone shouted in Sumo's sea of consciousness. Why is this happening? Lu Ming's face turned ugly. After opening the purple copper coffin, he had not dealt with the barbarian tribe. Instead, his own people were in trouble. Roar. Myriad God kept roaring. The bloody aura on his body became denser. His face was distorted and his body started to swell. If this continued, he would really explode. Lu Ming never expected the purple copper coffin to have such a great effect on Myriad God. Close the purple copper coffin, or he will die. Bone shouted. Close it. Lu Ming shouted and pushed the purple copper coffin with all his might. He wanted to close the purple copper coffin. He had no choice but to do so. Otherwise, if the barbarian tribe was fine, he would have to watch Myriad God explode and die. He could not do it. Gotcha. The purple copper coffin closed completely. The aura also disappeared without a trace. Chapter 3378. The purple copper coffin was closed by Lu Ming, and the aura instantly disappeared without a trace. Phew. Lu Ming gasped for breath and his body was drenched in cold sweat. The aura was too terrifying. He felt that he was about to die and his body was still in excruciating pain. The moment the aura disappeared, Wan Shun's aura suddenly calmed down. His body was no longer distorted and slowly returned to normal. The glaring blood-red aura also retracted and disappeared. Following that, Wan Shun fainted. Lan Shang hurriedly caught Wan Shun. Phew. The surrounding barbarians secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Many of them felt a chill run down their backs as they were drenched in cold sweat. When Lu Ming opened the purple copper coffin just now, the aura was too terrifying. There was a great sense of crisis. They all had a feeling that they had been targeted by a terrifying existence and would be swallowed in one gulp. It was too late for them to retreat. At that moment, the surrounding barbarians surrounded Lu Ming and company from afar. For a moment, no one dared to approach. What is that? It's so strange. Many barbarians looked at the purple copper coffin in Lu Ming's hands with fear. Don't get too close. Now that the monster is unconscious, there are only 2 of them left. They are nothing to worry about. Send 1 or 2 people to take them down. The purple golden armored barbarian said. He did not dare to let the barbarian army get too close. If Lu Ming opened the purple copper coffin again, and caused the barbarian army to suffer great losses, it would be a great loss. Only Lu Ming and company were left. As long as a Sir God was sent, they could easily take them down. The barbarian army continued to retreat a distance. However, they still surrounded the surrounding space, not giving Lu Ming and company a chance to escape. Who is willing to take them down? The purple golden armored barbarian swept his gaze across the barbarian army. However, no one dared to respond. The aura from the purple copper coffin was too terrifying. If they were to capture Lu Ming and Lu Ming risked his life to open the purple copper coffin, they would die as well. Who would be willing to do such a suicidal thing? The purple golden armored barbarian's face turned gloomy, and he said, "Since no one wants to go up, I'll be the one to do it." The hearts of the barbarian army trembled, and each of them prayed that they wouldn't be targeted. "You guys go and take them down." The purple gold man looked at the 5 barbarians. These barbarians were all at the peak Divine King realm. Lu Ming was a 5th-tier King God realm expert. As for Lan Shang, he did not even have a star core. Even if he had some combat power, he had been severely injured earlier. 5 peak King God realm experts were more than enough to deal with Lu Ming and Lan Shang. Moreover, if Lu Ming opened the purple copper coffin, they would only lose 5 peak Divine Kings. It would not be a big deal. This was the purple golden armored barbarian's plan. The faces of the 5 barbarian tribe members who were pointed out immediately turned pale. However, this was the army, and military orders were absolute. Once they were ordered, they could only obey. Otherwise, they would be dealt with according to military law. Still not going? The purple golden armored barbarian said coldly. Yes. The 5 barbarian tribe members could only obey the order. Then they flew toward Lu Ming. "Kid, it's not too late to surrender. As long as you surrender, we won't kill you." One of the barbarians shouted. "That's right. Did you see your subordinates? They are all safe and sound. We didn't kill them." Another barbarian tribe member shouted. They wanted to make Lu Ming surrender without fighting. That way, they wouldn't have to take risks. Lu Ming looked around. His subordinates were captured, but they weren't killed. However, he didn't trust the barbarians. The Taishu dynasty and the barbarians had been fighting each other for a long time. They were mortal enemies, and it was impossible for them to show mercy. They didn't kill them now, but it didn't mean that they wouldn't kill them in the future. Lu Ming would never allow himself to fall into the barbarians' hands. If you want to fight, then fight. If you don't, then get lost. Lu Ming said coldly. Why aren't you attacking? The purple golden armored barbarian tribe member urged. Kid, we gave you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. You're courting death. Attack. The 5 barbarians didn't hesitate anymore. They roared and attacked Lu Ming at the same time. They wanted to suppress Lu Ming with a storm of attacks. They wanted to subdue Lu Ming as soon as possible, so that Lu Ming wouldn't have time to open the purple copper coffin. However, Lu Ming didn't plan to open the purple copper coffin in the face of a peak divine king. Lu Ming held the spear in one hand and thrust it out. At the same time as the spear thrust out, Qiu cooperated with it and released bolts of lightning that enveloped the 5 brute race experts. A huge collision occurred between the two sides. Yin-Yang Godai, Gate of Domination. Lu Ming let out a low roar. His eyes turned into vortexes as he cast the Yin-Yang Divine Eyes. Lines of runes appeared and condensed into Yin-Yang runes. They were like a line of sight, entangling the 5 powerful barbarians. At the same time, the Gate of Domination enlarged rapidly and pressed down on the barbarians. This kid. The 5 peak divine kings of the barbarians were shocked. Lu Ming's attacks were violent and his fighting strength was beyond their imagination. The 5 of them roared and attacked with their full strength. Some of them slashed with their axes while others threw out iron fists. 5 terrifying attacks clashed with Lu Ming's attacks. The axes clashed with the bolts of lightning. The fists shook the Gate of Domination. For a moment, they were in a stalemate. This kid's strength. The other barbarians were also shocked. Lu Ming was only in the 5th Divine King realm, but his fighting strength was beyond their imagination. This kid is also a monster. No wonder the marshal ordered us to capture him alive. Many barbarians had the same thought. There were a few monsters in the group, and they were definitely important figures in the Taishu Holy Court. Although they did not know why they had suddenly come to the barbarian tribe's territory, they would definitely be a threat to the Taishu Holy Court if they were taken down. Swoosh. At this moment, a dazzling sword light flashed. It was Blue Merchant. His glabella shone and his soul power spread out. It turned into a sword light and attacked the 5 peak divine kings of the barbarians. Although Blue Merchant only had soul power, his soul power was so powerful that he could easily suppress a peak divine king. The 5 peak divine kings were fighting with Lu Ming. How could they block Blue Merchant's attack? Puff! Puff! The sword light flew and blood splattered. 5 heads flew far away. 5 peak divine kings of the barbarians were dead. Damn it! How dare you sneak attack us? The other barbarians roared. There are so many of you against us. How dare you say we're despicable? If you have the ability, let's fight at the same level. I'll kill all of you. Lu Ming sneered. You. The barbarians were furious, but they couldn't agree. Fight at the same level? What a joke. They would be killed by Lu Ming if they went up. Who else wants to die? Lu Ming shouted. He held the purple bronze coffin in one hand, and the Overlord Divine Spear in the other. You go and take them down. The purple golden armored barbarian pointed at a barbarian in black armor. Chapter 3379. The purple golden armored barbarian called out another barbarian. Bam! This barbarian was wearing black armor. He was burly and held a black spear in his hand. When he took a step forward, the void trembled. This barbarian was shockingly a first-level divine lord existence. The barbarians did not dare to take the risk. They were afraid of Lu Ming's purple copper coffin, and only called one person to go forward. The black-armored barbarian kept stepping forward. The void trembled and his aura became stronger. He was closing in on Lu Ming and Blue Merchant. He did not dare to be careless. He gathered his aura and waited for it to reach its peak before he killed Lu Ming. Lu Ming would not be able to fight back. Blue Merchant's figure flashed and appeared beside Lu Ming. He was ready to fight. Lu Ming's gaze turned solemn and his aura grew stronger. He even activated the Battle Word Sutra to increase his combat power by 5 times. He raised his body's condition to the extreme, and was prepared to fight to the death. Rumble. Right at this moment, a deafening boom suddenly reverberated, shaking the starry sky. Many people were shocked and looked in the direction of the voice. At first glance, their pupils could not help but widen. In the distant starry sky, an incomparably huge pitch-black mountain was flying in their direction. The mountain was huge, and it crashed into the starry sky. Some meteorites were hit by the mountain and exploded into pieces. The giant mountain was heading in the direction of Lu Ming and the rest. Mount Barbarian God. That's Mount Barbarian God. When the barbarians saw this, they shouted in shock. They did not expect Mount Barbarian God to fly towards them. Rumble. As Mount Barbarian God got closer, the terrifying sound became more intense. They could see many figures on both sides of Mount Barbarian God. They were all barbarians. What's going on? Lu Ming and Lanshang were also dumbstruck. They looked even more helpless. With so many barbarians coming at once, they had lost all hope. Quick, take them down! The purple golden armored barbarian shouted. Mount Barbarian God was almost there. If they did not take action, they would miss it. Come on, I'll send you on your way. Lu Ming yelled as he raised the purple copper coffin, ready to open it at any moment. Lu Ming instinctively felt that the appearance of this pitch-black mountain might change the situation for the better. So he immediately put on a desperate posture to stall for time. Fear flashed in the eyes of the barbarian in black armor. He hesitated for a moment and didn't act immediately. With this delay, Mount Barbarian God was getting closer to them. Get out of the way, get out of the way! Mount Barbarian God is not to be blasphemed. On both sides of Mount Barbarian God, there were barbarians roaring loudly. Their voices shook the starry sky. Clearly, they were terrifying existences. Get out of the way, quick! Go! The barbarian tribe members who had surrounded Lu Ming and Blue Merchant no longer dared to stay. They flew to the sides and avoided Mount Barbaric God. Legend had it that the Barbarian God Mountain was the place where the Barbarian God went into seclusion. What kind of existence was the Barbarian God? He was the ancestor of the barbarian tribe, the great existence that gave birth to the barbarian tribe. He was not to be blasphemed. The barbarian tribe members could only sense the aura of Mount Barbarian God from afar, and hope that they could obtain a fortuitous encounter. They couldn't get too close to Mount Barbarian God. Otherwise, they would be blaspheming the barbarian god, which was a great sin. Not only would they be guilty of a great sin, even their family members would be implicated. Therefore, when Mount Barbarian God flew over, no one dared to get close to it. They all flew away. Suddenly, Lu Ming's encirclement was broken. Lan Shu, the barbarian tribe members don't seem to dare to get close to this mountain. Lu Ming transmitted his voice to Blue Merchant. The two of them communicated quickly. That's right. Judging from the name, it's called Mount Barbarian God. It should be related to the ancestor of the barbarian tribe, the barbarian god. This is our chance. Let's charge up the mountain. Blue Merchant replied. All right. Lu Ming nodded. He had the same idea. The two of them communicated for a while. Mount Barbarian God was getting closer to them, bringing with it a violent force. This force was so strong that even an ordinary divine king would find it difficult to stand still. However, it was nothing to Lu Ming and Blue Merchant. The two of them didn't hesitate. Blue Merchant brought Wan Shun and Lu Ming and rushed towards Mount Barbarian God. Oh no, it's the two from the Taishu dynasty. Stop. How dare you blaspheme Mount Barbarian God? You're courting death. Stop. The barbarian tribe members shouted, wanting to stop Lu Ming and the others. However, Lu Ming and the others didn't care. They would only die if they stayed. If they rushed towards Mount Barbarian God, they might have a chance to survive. Swoosh. Swoosh. The two of them were extremely fast. They flew towards Mount Barbarian God like two rays of light. At this moment, the barbarian tribe members on both sides of Mount Barbarian God were alarmed. They roared in anger. However, they didn't dare to get close to Mount Barbarian God. They could only watch as Lu Ming and Blue Merchant approached Mount Barbarian God and landed on it. Mount Barbarian God was extremely huge. It was as big as a planet. Lu Ming and the others landed on it. They were no different from a speck of dust. This aura. The moment they landed on Mount Barbarian God, Lu Ming was surprised. This was because Mount Barbarian God was emitting an ancient aura. This aura was similar to the aura of the primordial divine spirit. However, it wasn't as pure as the primordial divine spirit. Could it be that the so-called barbarian god is related to the primordial divine spirit? Lu Ming couldn't help but guess. Lu Ming and Blue Merchant looked around. They realized that Mount Barbarian God was really just a huge black rock. There was nothing on it. There were no plants or living beings. It was dead silent. Those barbarian tribe members don't seem to dare to come in. Let's just stay here and drift along the mountain. Maybe we can get out. Lu Ming said. Don't be careless. They might take the risk and come in. Blue Merchant said with a serious face. Lu Ming nodded. He didn't dare to be careless. He took out a few divine pills and swallowed them. He used all his strength to refine the pills and recover his strength. At this moment, countless barbarians surrounded Mount Barbarian God on three sides. Many powerful barbarians stared intently at Lu Ming and Lan Shang, lest they escaped. What's going on? Some of the barbarian race experts looked at the barbarian race in purple and gold armor. He was a terrifying expert from the barbarian race. Although the barbarian race was a general at the border, he didn't dare to put on airs. He quickly said, "It's like this. Some people from the Taishu dynasty have sneaked in. We were chasing after them when we didn't expect the barbarian god mountain to fly over." The purple golden armored man briefly explained what had happened. I see. The expressions of the barbarian experts eased a little. These two ants from the Taishu dynasty actually dared to enter Mount Barbarian God. These blasphemers must not be allowed to live. An old barbarian said with a gloomy face. But Marshal Miexu said he wants him alive. The purple-armored barbarian looked troubled. You've already blasphemed against the god of berserkers, so why are you still keeping them alive? Kill them. If anything happens, I will answer to Marshal Miexu. The old barbarian said coldly. Chapter 3380. But they are on Mount Barbarian God. What should we do? The purple gold armored man frowned. Outsiders on Mount Barbarian God are the greatest blasphemy to the barbarian God. We must get rid of them. We have no choice but to send people to Mount Barbarian God. I believe that the barbarian God will not blame us if he knows about this. The elder from the barbarian tribe said. Obviously, his position in the barbarian tribe was not to be underestimated. Then, the elder from the barbarian tribe called a few of the higher-ups of the barbarian tribe to discuss, and finally decided to send people to Mount Barbarian God to kill Lu Ming and the rest. Originally, the barbarian tribe was not allowed to get close to Mount Barbarian God, let alone go up. But now they had no choice. They could not allow Lu Ming and the rest to stay on Mount Barbarian God. That would be the greatest blasphemy to the barbarian God. Soon they selected a dozen experts, all of whom were in the Divine Lord realm, to kill their way to Mount Barbarian God. The dozen experts from the barbarian tribe flashed and appeared in different directions of Mount Barbarian God. They surrounded Mount Barbarian God and blocked all the exits. Then they stepped out and rushed towards Mount Barbarian God. Not good. On Mount Barbarian God, Lu Ming and Blue Merchant's faces changed. They did not expect the barbarian tribe to be so decisive. They did not care about Mount Barbarian God, and directly sent experts to kill them. The dozen experts from the barbarian tribe were all in the Divine Lord realm. Moreover, they were probably above the first level of the Divine Lord realm. Their strength was too shocking. Their speed was very fast. In the blink of an eye, they were close to Lu Ming and the rest. The dozen Divine Lord realm experts joined forces and attacked Lu Ming and the rest from all directions. They could not escape at all. Lan Shu, if there is a chance later, take Wan Shen away with you. Lu Ming roared. Since they could not escape, they could only fight normally. Gotcha. Lu Ming pushed the lid of the purple copper coffin. The sound of metal rubbing against metal could be heard. The purple copper coffin opened a crack. That terrifying aura appeared again. Lu Ming felt excruciating pain all over his body. But at this moment, a strange scene appeared. Just as the purple copper coffin opened a crack, the entire Mount Barbarian God shook violently. Rumble! Mount God of Berserkers trembled violently, as if it had formed some sort of resonance with the purple copper coffin. Then, under the shocked gazes of countless berserkers and Lu Ming, the coffin quickly shrank. What happened? The dozen or so barbarian tribe warriors who were about to rush towards Lu Ming and the others roared in shock. They stopped and didn't dare to move forward. As for Mount Barbarian God, it was trembling more and more violently and shrinking more and more. It was originally the size of a life planet, but in just a short while, it had shrunk by dozens of times, and it was still shrinking rapidly. In the blink of an eye, the huge Mount Barbaric God shrank to a few meters tall. Lu Ming and Blue Merchant appeared in the starry sky. Then Mount Barbarian God turned into a beam of light and rushed into the crack in the purple copper coffin, disappearing without a trace. Lu Ming was flabbergasted. This scene was truly beyond his expectations. The purple copper coffin had actually swallowed Mount Barbaric God. That is, then Lu Ming and Blue Merchant's eyes flashed. The huge Mount Barbarian God had disappeared, but in the place where it had disappeared, there was a huge whirlpool. A pitch-black whirlpool with a diameter of more than 10,000 meters was spinning nonstop. This was clearly a passageway. There was actually a passageway inside Mount Barbarian God. No one knew where it led to as it had been blocked by Mount Barbarian God previously. Mount Barbarian God has disappeared. Ah, damn it, what kind of evil technique did that brat use to take away Mount Barbarian God? Damn it. The disappearance of Mount Barbarian God had driven the berserkers crazy. Countless berserkers roared and looked at Lu Ming and the others with murderous intent. They couldn't wait to tear Lu Ming and the others into pieces. Kill them and take back Mount Barbarian God. Countless berserkers roared and charged towards Lu Ming and the others with murderous intent. Lan Shu, charge into the whirlpool. Lu Ming roared and quickly used his strength to close the purple copper coffin. Then he charged into the whirlpool. At the same time, Blue Merchant also moved. He carried the unconscious Wan Shen and charged into the whirlpool. No matter where the whirlpool led to, they had to give it a try. Staying here would only lead to death. There was no chance of survival. However, if they charged into the whirlpool, there might be a way out. Lu Ming and Blue Merchant naturally wouldn't miss out on this sudden chance of survival. Lu Ming and Blue Merchant charged into the whirlpool at the same time. Lu Ming charged into the whirlpool without any obstruction and disappeared. When Blue Merchant charged into the whirlpool, he felt a strong resistance. This resistance was not obstructing him. Instead, it was obstructing the unconscious myriad gods. It seemed like there was a force that was stopping Wan Shen from entering. Not good. Blue Merchant's expression changed drastically. At this moment, an ancient and desolate aura emanated from Wan Shen's body. It was as if dozens of ancient existences were roaring. When this aura appeared, the resistance suddenly disappeared. Lan Shang took myriad god and entered the vortex without a hitch. They charged into the whirlpool. Charge in and kill them. The berserkers roared. Some of the stronger existences were the fastest. In the blink of an eye, they charged into the whirlpool. However, when they reached the whirlpool, they felt an extremely strong resistance that stopped them. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't charge into the whirlpool. How is this possible? This is impossible. Why can't we enter? The berserkers roared, finding it hard to accept. This whirlpool was inside Mount Barbarian God and belonged to the berserkers. However, Lu Ming and Blue Merchant could enter, but the berserkers couldn't. What was the meaning of this? That's not right. There seems to be a strong restriction on this whirlpool. It requires one's cultivation to reach a certain level. One can't enter. At this moment, an old berserker noticed something and his voice reverberated throughout the area. I see. Many berserkers were enlightened. Countless berserkers surrounded the whirlpool and observed it carefully. In the end, they came to the conclusion that those above the Divine Lord realm couldn't enter the whirlpool. Only those below the Divine Lord realm could enter. However, among those people from the Taishu dynasty, there's clearly one above the Divine Lord realm. How can he enter? Some berserkers raised their doubts. Wan Shen was clearly a second-level Divine Lord. Wasn't he also brought in by Blue Merchant? Was it because he was unconscious? Following that, the berserkers tested it out. They knocked out a first-level Divine Lord Berserker and let a ninth-level Divine King Berserker bring him into the whirlpool. However, they were still blocked. They couldn't figure it out. However, after testing it out, they found that only those below the Divine Lord realm could enter. They sent a few berserkers below the Divine Lord realm, and they had already entered. Could this whirlpool be the barbarian god's true place of seclusion? Some berserkers speculated. This caused many berserkers' eyes to sparkle. Chapter 3381. Many top powers of the barbarian tribe speculated that the whirlpool might be the real place where the god of barbarians secluded himself. The whirlpool was obviously a door, a passageway that led to an unknown place. This is the will of the heavens. The god of barbarians made use of the boy from the Taishu dynasty to make the real place where he secluded himself. This is an opportunity for us. An old barbarian said excitedly. That's right. This is an opportunity for the barbarian tribe to rise. We must seize it. Report this to the barbarian emperor, and let him make a decision. In the end, many barbarians came to an agreement, and reported the news to the barbarian emperor. They used a special method to spread the news. Not long after, they received a reply from the barbarian emperor. He sent out a large number of top powers below the Sir God level into the whirlpool. Not long after, a large number of barbarians arrived. Among this group of barbarians, there were peerless geniuses of the younger generation and old monsters who had been stuck at the peak Divine King realm for many years. Without a doubt, they were all top experts of the Divine King realm. They had entered the whirlpool for two purposes. The first was to kill Lu Ming and the others. The second was to see if there was an opportunity in the real place where the god of barbarians secluded himself. If there was an opportunity, it would be the foundation for the barbarian tribe to rise. It's Manku. Manku is here too. Someone exclaimed when they saw the group of top powers. There was a young barbarian in the group. He was extremely eye-catching. He was too tall. He was 1/3 taller than the average barbarian. He was especially eye-catching in the group. This young barbarian was called Manku. He was a peerless genius of the younger generation of the barbarian tribe. He was known as the strongest divine king of the barbarian tribe. He was invincible among the divine kings. He was the center of attention among the barbarian tribe. His future was limitless. This time, the barbarian emperor had sent him to the real place where the god of barbarians secluded himself. He wanted to see if he could obtain an opportunity to rise to the next level. In addition, there were also some young barbarian tribe members who were extremely famous among the barbarian tribe. They were all extremely powerful people. There were also some old barbarians who had almost all their hair falling out. Their skin was shriveled and wrinkled. They were in stark contrast to the young barbarians. These people were people from the barbarian tribe who had been stuck at the peak of the divine king realm for countless years. Most of them did not have much lifespan left. However, they had stayed at the peak divine king realm for too long. No matter if it was their comprehension of the divine power origin or various divine skills or secret techniques, they had all cultivated to a profound level. Their fighting strength was extremely powerful, far stronger than ordinary peak divine kings. They would follow Manku and the other young prodigies in. One was to act as Manku and the other's Tao protectors, and the other was to see if they could find a lucky chance to break through their limits and step into the Divine Lord realm. Alright, let's go. Remember, we must kill those bastards from the Taishu dynasty. A barbarian expert warned. Don't worry, those ants will definitely die. The one who spoke was Manku, and his face was filled with confidence. After that, more than 500 barbarians rushed into the whirlpool and disappeared. Where is this? As soon as Lu Ming went through the whirlpool, he felt as if he had entered a transmission array. After an unknown amount of time, he found himself on a barren plain. Looking around, all he could see was desolation. The desolate land, the boundless land, was devoid of life. There were no plants, no animals, only a cold wind blowing past. Other than that, there was nothing. Blue Merchant and Wan Shen were not by his side. Swoosh! Lu Ming rushed into the sky and looked around. The vast expanse of land was filled with potholes, as if it had been through a great battle. It was like a battlefield. Other than that, he did not see Blue Merchant and Wan Shen. Could it be that after entering the whirlpool, they separated? Lu Ming pondered, then took out a voice transmission jade talisman and sent a message to Blue Merchant. However, what made Lu Ming's heart sink was that the voice transmission jade talisman could not be transmitted. What's going on? Is it because we are too far away? Lu Ming frowned. He could only pray that Blue Merchant and Wan Shen were fine. I don't know where this is. I have to leave this place quickly. Perhaps the barbarians will chase after me. Lu Ming pondered, then randomly chose a direction and flew forward. However, the moment Lu Ming flew, he realized that something was amiss. His flying speed had plummeted by several times. He was countless times slower than before. His current speed was like the speed of a turtle in Lu Ming's eyes. My speed is greatly suppressed. This world. Wait. At that moment, Lu Ming calmed down and carefully sensed his surroundings. He realized that something was amiss. This world exuded an ancient and primordial feeling. It was extremely heavy, giving Lu Ming the illusion that he had traversed infinite space-time and arrived in the primordial era. Heavy, majestic, condensed, ancient, all sorts of feelings came one after another. Dong, dong, dong. At the same time, Lu Ming's heart of the ancient god beat violently like a divine drum. Following that, there was a strange energy in the world that gathered towards the heart of the ancient god. After absorbing this energy, the heart of the ancient god seemed to become more powerful. Following that, a wave of energy flowed out of the heart of the ancient god and spread throughout Lu Ming's body, tempering his divine body. Although this feeling was not very fast and was very slow, Lu Ming could clearly feel that it was countless times faster than outside. Outside, the heart of the ancient god could constantly absorb the energy of the outside world and turn it into blood qi to nourish and temper Lu Ming's divine body. However, its speed was far inferior to this place. This energy is very mysterious. Lu Ming carefully sensed it and realized that this energy was somewhat similar to the aura of a primordial god. Lu Ming was rather surprised. He felt that this place was not simple. However, there was one advantage. If he cultivated here, The improvement of his ancient god body would definitely be much faster than outside. Lu Ming did not stop and started to wander around aimlessly. This place was very big. Lu Ming wandered around for half a month, and still could not walk out of this place. On this day, Lu Ming was wandering aimlessly when suddenly, a bright light shone from a direction. That's... Lu Ming looked in that direction, and discovered that there was a door in that direction. It was an incomparably huge door. It was indomitable and stood in the void. A door? What's going on? Lu Ming was shocked. He then soared into the sky and flew towards the door. However, his speed was many times slower than when he was outside. Even after flying for several days, he still didn't arrive at the entrance. After a few days, the light on the door had dimmed a lot. It was faintly discernible in the void. Dong, dong, dong. At this moment, Qiu, who had been in the form of a bracelet on Lu Ming's wrist, moved. He flew out and turned into a round ball. His mouth opened and closed, and his eyes were shining. Chapter 3382. Qiu opened its mouth wide, revealing 2 rows of sharp teeth. Its eyes glowed as it rushed forward. Did this guy discover something? Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Qiu's state clearly showed that it had discovered something delicious. Lu Ming knew it too well. Lu Ming hurriedly followed Qiu and flew forward. Soon Lu Ming made a discovery. He saw a battle sword on the ground in front of him. It wasn't a complete battle sword, but a broken sword. Only the tip remained, but it was too huge. The broken sword was inserted into the ground and pierced through the clouds. It was at least 10,000 meters tall. Lu Ming was extremely shocked. What kind of existence could use such a huge sword? Ordinary divine weapons could change in size, but that was only possible when they were injected with divine power. They could only become incomparably huge when they were under the control of someone else. But once there was no divine power, the divine weapon would return to its original size. As for the broken sword in front of him, it was so big even though no one was controlling it. This was truly shocking. It stood there like a mountain. Crunch, crunch. Qiu's teeth kept colliding. It became even more excited and sped up. It flew directly under the broken sword and opened its mouth to bite. It bit off a huge piece and swallowed it with a face full of bliss. At this time, Lu Ming also came under the broken sword and carefully sized it up. This was an old sword. He didn't know what metal it was made of, but he could tell that it was very old. It had been through a long time and was about to corrode. It was full of holes and its spirituality had been severely damaged. It was almost useless. But it was still a great supplement for Qiu. It ate happily. Lu Ming didn't care about it. He sat cross-legged at the side and circulated his energy to regulate his breathing. Previously, he had opened the purple copper coffin twice. Although he had only opened a tiny gap, he had endured a huge amount of pressure and was heavily injured. During this period, he had been healing his injuries while flying. Now his injuries were basically healed, and he had returned to his peak state. Qiu ate very quickly, eating a huge piece of metal with each bite. Soon, a huge gap was gnawed off the huge battle sword. But Qiu didn't have any intention of stopping. Its body seemed to have no bottom. It could contain as much metal as it ate. Just like that, Qiu ate for 3 days. 3 days later, the broken sword that was 10,000 meters tall entered Qiu's stomach. After eating the broken sword, Qiu turned into a ball and landed on the ground. Its body gave off a faint light, then stopped moving. It. Qiu evolve. Lu Ming's eyes. He was well aware of Qiu's current state. This was the rhythm of evolution. It seemed that this broken sword was no small matter. Qiu was about to evolve right after eating it. Of Qiu of the god was the 8th layer king god realm. Ding Kukiukyu of Qiu's evolution was cultivate. Dong dong dong. The ancient god's heartbeat. Lu Ming absorbed the energy of the outside world and gathered it in the ancient god's heart. Then it turned into surging blood qi that filled Lu Ming's body and nourished Lu Ming's divine body. Not only that, Lu Ming felt that cultivating here could increase his divine power much faster than cultivating outside. This was an excellent cultivation ground. No wonder it was said that the barbarian god was in seclusion here. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Qiuqiu still hadn't woken up. Just then, Lu Ming's expression changed and he looked in a direction. Whoosh! Whoosh! There were 7 or 8 rays of light flying towards him at an astonishing speed. Barbarian tribe. A cold light flashed in Lu Ming's eyes. He could tell at a glance that they were of the barbarian tribe. There were 8 of them. Some of them were young, while others looked like middle-aged men. The barbarian tribe had indeed caught up. However, Lu Ming didn't retreat. Firstly, Qiuqiu was still evolving. He couldn't leave Qiuqiu behind. Secondly, these barbarian tribe weren't very strong. They were all below the Divine King realm. He might be able to deal with them. It's that kid. Don't let him go. The 8 barbarian tribe members also noticed Lu Ming. They roared and chased after Lu Ming, surrounding him. 2 of the 8 barbarian tribe members were young while the other 6 were middle-aged men. Kid, where are your companions? One of the barbarian tribe members stared at Lu Ming and asked coldly. He didn't hide his strong killing intent. Just me. Don't look for me. Lu Ming said indifferently. Looks like you were separated when you came in. That's fine. I'll kill you first before killing the others. The barbarian tribe member said coldly. Kill me? I'm afraid you don't have the ability. What's that? Lu Ming said coldly. Suddenly, his eyes widened and he looked in a direction. The barbarian tribe members were shocked, and they looked in that direction instinctively. At that moment, Lu Ming started his attack. Kill! Lu Ming shouted and attacked in a direction. His palm slashed out like a knife. In an instant, Lu Ming's combat strength increased by 4 times. He circulated the heavenly demon golden body to the extreme. There were 2 middle-aged men in the 8th Divine King realm in that direction. However, they were just ordinary 8th Divine King realm cultivators. They couldn't block Lu Ming's attack. Puff. Puff. Blood splattered everywhere. The 2 barbarian tribe members' bodies exploded and they died. Then Lu Ming swept his leg like a steel whip towards one of the middle-aged barbarian tribe members. The barbarian tribe member reacted and tried his best to block the attack. However, he still died. He collided with Lu Ming and his body exploded. He died on the spot. The moment Lu Ming attacked, he killed 3 barbarian tribe members. Bastard, you're courting death. Kill. The remaining 5 barbarian tribe members roared and charged towards Lu Ming. 5 attacks came from 5 different directions, and they attacked Lu Ming. Swish. Lu Ming cast the 9 heavens Kuan-Peng technique. His figure flashed and he avoided the other party's attack. Don't think about leaving. One of the young barbarian tribe members shouted. He rushed towards Lu Ming like a cannonball. His iron fist was like a mountain, and it crushed towards Lu Ming with violent energy. Lu Ming was not afraid. He circulated the heavenly demon golden body and punched out. Boom. The 2 of them hit each other, and there was a big explosion in the void. The young barbarian tribe member was pushed back. Lu Ming's body swayed. What powerful strength! Lu Ming was shocked. Lu Ming had activated the battle incantation to increase his combat strength by 4 times. He circulated the heavenly demon golden body, and the 11 types of divine powers in his body. His strength was shocking. However, when he exchanged blows with the young barbarian tribe member, his arm felt numb. Chapter 3383. 7th King God Lair. Looks like he's a peerless genius of the barbarian tribe. Lu Ming muttered. The young man from the barbarian tribe had reached the 7th King God Lair at such a young age. He was definitely a peerless genius of the barbarian tribe. Huang Dong was ranked 18th in the last batch of geniuses who had joined the Great Void Imperial family. He was only at the 6th King God Lair. Putting everything else aside, in terms of cultivation alone, this barbarian youth was ranked in the top 18 of the previous batch of geniuses from the Great Void Imperial Academy. However, the young man from the barbarian tribe was even more surprised. He had heard that Lu Ming was monstrously strong, but he didn't believe it. He was only at the 5th King God Lair. How strong could he be? Moreover, he was also a peerless genius. Let's attack together and kill him first. A middle-aged burly man roared and charged toward Lu Ming. The middle-aged man was strong. He was a peak king god. At the same time, the other barbarian tribe members also charged towards Lu Ming. Great. I'll send you to hell. Lu Ming shouted coldly. His aura became stronger and stronger like an erupting volcano. He circulated all kinds of divine powers to the maximum, especially the ruler's divine force, overlord spear force, and moon divine force. Lu Ming had awakened them 3 times. Their power was terrifying. Lu Ming grabbed the air, and the overlord spear appeared. He thrust it forward. A river of spear principles appeared. It was huge and it covered the 2 barbarian tribe members. Ah! The 2 barbarian tribe members screamed. Their bodies were pierced by the spear lights and they died on the spot. Then Lu Ming waved his hand and the God's Gate appeared. It charged towards the other young barbarian tribe member. That barbarian tribe member was also a peerless genius. However, his cultivation level was too low. He was only at the 5th king god layer. He had only come here to try his luck. He was no match for Lu Ming. He turned pale with fright. He exerted all his strength and punched hundreds of times in an attempt to block Lu Ming's attack. However, it was all in vain. The God's Gate crushed his fist energies. No! The young barbarian tribe member shouted in despair. Then his body was torn apart. He was killed by Lu Ming. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. It was too fast. In an instant, another 3 barbarians were killed by Lu Ming. Only 2 barbarian tribe members. One was the peerless genius of the 7th layer of the king god realm, and the other was the middle-aged man of the barbarian tribe at the peak of the king god realm. They were the strongest barbarian tribe members. So that's why Lu's Gate. Kid, I'll kill you. The young barbarian man of the 7th king god realm shouted furiously. His murderous aura shot up to the sky. His aura became more and more powerful, reaching the peak in the end. Awaken 3rd awakening. Lu Ming's barbarian tribe member. This barbarian prodigy was indeed extraordinary. His origin divine power factor had actually awakened thrice. This was the first time Lu Ming had encountered a prodigy who had awakened his origin divine power factor thrice. God's King God Origin S his God Origin God level. Barbarian King's Divine Axe. The barbarian race genius roared. A bronze battle axe appeared in the air and was held in his hand. This was his origin's secret technique. With the secret technique in his hand, the barbarian tribe member charged towards Lu Ming. The barbarian king's divine axe shook the heavens and earth. A terrifying energy burst out. The gigantic axe fell towards Lu Ming. The axe had yet to hit Lu Ming, but an extremely powerful pressure was already pressing down on him. Although the barbarian tribe member was only at the 7th god layer, his fighting strength was terrifying. He was stronger than many peak god kings. Great. I'd like to see how strong the barbarian tribe's top barbarian tribe member is. On the contrary, Lu Ming's fighting spirit grew stronger. With a long roar, the tyrannical divine spear charged upward. A huge spear gleam soared into the sky, as if it was going to pierce the sky. It collided with the other party's barbarian king divine axe. Boom. There was an earth-shattering explosion. It was as if a planet had exploded in the sky. Violent energy swept out in all directions. Lu Ming and the barbarian tribe member trembled and retreated at the same time. However, as soon as they retreated, the ground cracked and they charged towards each other again. Barbarian King's divine axe, heaven-destroying strike. The barbarian race genius roared and unleashed a terrifying ultimate move. He slashed out with his battle axe, filling the sky with axe light. Boom, boom, boom. The ground kept exploding as the axe light overflowed with energy. Terrifying cracks appeared on the ground. This place was like an ancient desolate land. The ground was extremely hard. It was many times harder than the ground outside. One could see how powerful the barbarian king's divine axe was to be able to cause such destruction. Unstoppable Spear River, Sovereign's Gate. Lu Ming waved his spear and executed the strongest move of the war god strike, Unstoppable Spear River. A dazzling river appeared and swept forward. The Unstoppable Spear River was the strongest move of the war god strike. It was mysterious and unpredictable. Not only could it attack, but it could also protect one's body. The Unstoppable Spear River was formed by countless spear lights. It collided with the barbarian tribe member's axe light and created a terrifying explosion. At the same time, Lu Ming controlled the Sovereign's Gate and attacked his opponent. Rumble. The Sovereign's Gate exploded with a powerful force. It was 10,000 feet tall and was about to kill the barbarian tribe member. However, the barbarian tribe member's axe light suddenly increased in number. Some of the axe light soared into the sky and slashed at the Sovereign's Gate, blocking it. For a moment, neither of them could do anything to the other. One had to admit that the barbarian tribe member was indeed powerful. In many aspects, he wasn't much weaker than Lu Ming. He was in the 7th God King realm, 2 levels higher than Lu Ming. In addition, he had awakened his divine origin power 3 times. Although both of them had awakened 3 times, the difference in cultivation level was too great. Even though Lu Ming had awakened 3 types of divine powers 3 times, it was still difficult to make up for the difference. Only by using the battle character art to increase his combat strength by 4 times, and using all 11 types of divine powers could he barely make up for the difference. As for origin source secret techniques and other powerful secret techniques, the barbarian youth also had them. The 2 of them fought with speed and strength. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged more than 10 blows. Die. At this moment, the Peak God King Realm middle-aged barbarian tribe member suddenly appeared beside Lu Ming. He reached out his hand and slashed at Lu Ming. He wanted to kill Lu Ming with a fatal blow. However, Lu Ming had been paying attention to his opponent's actions. As soon as the barbarian tribe member attacked, Lu Ming attacked as well. Yin-Yang God Eye. Lu Ming's eyes turned into 2 whirlpools. 2 huge whirlpools appeared in the sky. One was extremely cold, and the other was extremely hot. They exploded with destructive energy and attacked the Peak God King. The barbarian tribe member's expression changed. His battle blade expanded and he slashed out more than 10 times. Boom, boom, boom. A series of explosions occurred, and the middle-aged barbarian tribe member was pushed back. Your opponent is me. Duh. The barbarian tribe member roared. His divine power surged and his body expanded rapidly. He turned into a 1,000-meter-tall giant. Chapter 3384. The barbarian tribe prodigy roared as his body grew rapidly. He turned into a 1,000-meter-tall giant. This is the ancient god body? No, it's not the ancient god body. It's different. Lu Ming was shocked at first. He thought that the other party cultivated the ancient god body, but he immediately realized that it was different from the ancient god body. First of all, there was a huge difference in appearance. Moreover, the giant that the barbarian tribe prodigy had transformed into did not have scales of different colors. Instead, it was a layer of rock-like armor. The yellow armor covered his entire body, making him look extraordinarily mighty. Moreover, the essence of his aura was also very different from the ancient god body. Lu Ming speculated that this was also a type of secret technique that had the same effect as the ancient god body. Die, you ant! The barbarian tribe prodigy roared as he raised his leg and stomped down on Lu Ming. The sole of his foot covered the sky as he wanted to stomp Lu Ming into meat paste. Then I'll pierce through your soul. Lu Ming shouted as he merged his energy and divine power into the Overlord God Spear. It turned into a spear light that shot into the sky and pierced toward the sole of the foot. Clang! The Overlord God Spear accurately pierced the other party's soul, producing a loud boom. However, it did not pierce through the other party's soul. The other party's entire body was covered in rock-like armor. It was too hard. Lu Ming's spear only left a mark on the other party's armor. It did not pierce through at all. Lu Ming felt a violent force coming, causing his body to tremble as he fell to the ground like a meteorite. Boom! Lu Ming landed on the ground and stomped on it, creating a huge crater and sending gravel everywhere. Die! The barbarian tribe prodigy's foot continued to stomp down, creating a violent airflow. However, Lu Ming exerted force in his legs and flew out of the range of the other party's foot. The other party's foot stomped on the ground, creating a huge crater. It was extremely powerful. Obviously, after the other party turned into a giant, his strength had increased tremendously. Whoosh! At this moment, the middle-aged Peak Divine King behind Lu Ming seized the opportunity to launch a terrifying attack at Lu Ming. His blade was as fast as lightning, slashing towards the back of Lu Ming's head. You're courting death. Lu Ming's eyes flashed with a cold light. An even stronger aura erupted from his body. The battle's secret art had increased his combat power by 5 times. At the same time, Lu Ming waved his hand, and the Sovereign's Gate shot towards the middle-aged barbarian. At the same time, Lu Ming became one with his spear, and transformed into a dazzling spear light that shot towards the middle-aged barbarian. With Lu Ming's current strength, if triggering 5 times combat power, it would already completely crush ordinary peak divine kings. Bang! After clashing with the Gate of Domination, the young man's body trembled violently, and he was forced to retreat, revealing an opening. How could Lu Ming miss this opening? Spear light flashed, and blood splattered everywhere. The middle-aged barbarian's glabella was pierced by the spear light, and his soul was destroyed. He died on the spot. After killing the middle-aged barbarian, Lu Ming executed the 9 Heavens Rock technique, and dodged the attack of the barbarian's genius. Die, you ant! The barbarian's genius roared. This time, all the people who came with him were dead. He was extremely furious, and he wanted to tear Lu Ming into pieces. Do you think that you're the only one who has the secret body constitution technique? I have it too. Let's see who's stronger. Lu Ming sneered. With a thought, the ancient god's technique burst out. Lu Ming's body grew rapidly, and he became 1,000 meters tall, and he turned into a blue-armored ancient god. Ancient god body. So you've cultivated the ancient god body. Watch my barbarian god body break your ancient god body. The barbarian's genius recognized that Lu Ming cultivated the ancient god body. However, he was not afraid at all. The barbarian god body he cultivated was a secret physique technique that was on the same level as the ancient god body. Moreover, his mastery was extremely high, so he was not afraid of Lu Ming. Boom! The barbarian's battle axe in his hand grew to 1,000 meters long, and he slashed at Lu Ming. Lu Ming also swung his spear, and the barbarian god's spear was as huge as a mountain, and it blasted towards his opponent. Their attacks collided like 2 stars colliding. The area shook violently, and the ground was blown away by the shockwaves that swept out, and the ground was flattened for a few hundred meters. Then the 2,000-meter-tall giants trembled and retreated a dozen steps, creating a dozen craters in the ground. Kill! Kill! The two of them roared at the same time, and they attacked each other fiercely. The barbarian's genius was indeed powerful. The barbarian god body he cultivated was not weaker than Lu Ming's ancient god body, and his defense was shockingly strong. The two of them exchanged dozens of blows, turning the entire area into a mess. However, Lu Ming had the support of the battle incantation, which increased his combat power by 5 times. He was ultimately stronger, and began to suppress his opponent, forcing him to retreat continuously. Impossible! The barbarian's genius shouted in disbelief. He was definitely one of the top geniuses in the barbarian tribe. In terms of talent, he was definitely one of the top few geniuses. He was only at the 7th level of the King God realm, and he had awakened his origin source divine force 3 times. Not everyone could do that. Moreover, he had cultivated the barbarian god body and other secret techniques to an extremely high level. He had never been defeated in a battle of the same level. However, he was now at a disadvantage against someone who was 2 levels lower than him. He found it hard to believe and accept. Nothing is impossible. I will kill you today. Lu Ming said coldly. 2 vortexes appeared in his eyes as he used the yin-yang god eye. This time, it did not appear in the form of a vortex. Instead, it turned into a yin-yang talisman, and it formed a thin talisman thread. It surrounded the barbarian's genius from all directions. Although the talisman thread of the yin-yang god eye looked thin, it was filled with destructive power. Its cutting power was shocking. Sizzle sizzle. The talisman thread of the yin-yang god eye wrapped around the barbarian's genius, making sizzling sounds and sparks. The barbarian's rock armor was cut deep. If this continued, it would be cut open sooner or later. Damn it! The barbarian's genius shouted, and there was a tinge of fear in his eyes. Brat, I will kill you next time. Finally, the barbarian's genius was frightened. He took a step back and wanted to leave. Since you are here, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Stay and accompany your friends. Lu Ming said coldly. He held the Overlord God's spear and attacked. At the same time, he controlled the Overlord God's gate to suppress the barbarian's genius. Boom boom. Lu Ming's attacks landed on the barbarian's genius continuously. However, they did not break through his defense. They only made his body tremble. The barbarian's genius shouted and tried his best to block the attacks. He tried to run away as he tried to escape. Stay here, Lu Ming shouted. Suddenly, a moon and a sun appeared above his head. They were the origin source secret skills that he had awakened from the Sun Divine Force and Moon Divine Force. They were the Moon of Moon and the Sun of Sunday. The Moon of Moon and the Sun of Sun emitted a dazzling light that shrouded the barbarian's genius. When the light shone on the barbarian's genius, black smoke rose from the surface of his body. It was as if he was being burned. Chapter 3385. Origin Source Secret Technique. The barbarian race genius roared in horror, his voice filled with disbelief. In terms of origin secret techniques alone, he was not surprised at all. However, Lu Ming had used 4 origin secret techniques in succession. This made him extremely shocked. It was too terrifying for a single person to control 4 origin source secret techniques. The barbarian race genius lost all his fighting spirit and fled frantically. Now he only had one thought, and that was to escape as far as he could. However, Lu Ming would not let him escape. All kinds of attacks continued to fall. In the end, Lu Ming used the ice chains. 9 ice chains sealed thousands of miles and sealed off all directions, making it extremely difficult for the barbarian race genius to move. Finally, under Lu Ming's maniacal attacks, the rock armor on the barbarian prodigy's body could not take it any longer. Cracks appeared on it. Crack, crack, more and more cracks appeared and some parts of the rock armor began to fall off. Lu Ming seized the opportunity and shook the Overlord God Spear. Spear light burst out and pierced into the areas where the rock armor was falling off. Immediately, blood splattered everywhere and bloody holes appeared. The barbarian race genius let out a scream, and his eyes were filled with horror. He had a feeling that he was going to die here today. This terrified him. He was a peerless genius. Among the younger generation of the barbarian race, there were only a handful of people with his talent. He was destined to become a big shot in the barbarian race in the future. This time, he came here to obtain an opportunity, not to court death. He was extremely unwilling to accept this. I'll fight you to the death. In the end, he roared and stopped running. Instead, he turned around and launched a storm of attacks at Lu Ming. However, at this moment he was already injured and his combat strength was not as strong as before. He was no longer a threat to Lu Ming. His attacks were easily blocked by Lu Ming. Under Lu Ming's attacks, the rock armor on his body continued to explode. In the end, there was not much defense left on his body and the rock armor almost fell off. Lu Ming waved his spear and left more wounds on his body. Bastard of the Taishu dynasty. Even if you kill me, you will still die. The berserker race's prodigy let out a final mad roar. His unwilling voice pierced through the clouds and spread out in all directions. This guy is summoning his comrades. Kill him. Lu Ming bellowed, his divine power gushing out crazily. The gate of domination vibrated and smashed heavily on the other party's head. The other party's head tilted and he almost fell to the ground, feeling dizzy and disoriented. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the rune threads formed by the Yin-Yang God Eye broke through the opponent's defense and cut him into a dozen pieces. Then, under the light of the moon and the sun, the barbarian's body turned into ashes. Only his soul rushed out, wanting to escape, but Lu Ming stabbed out with his spear, piercing his soul into pieces. This unknown barbarian prodigy had completely fallen. This barbarian prodigy's strength was truly astonishing. Lu Ming had almost used all his strength and all his trump cards to kill this prodigy. Lu Ming had not encountered many people who were 2 levels higher than Lu Ming, and had such combat strength. For example, Chu Chenkong, Su Wuya, and Yi Jifan were only SO. However, before Lu Ming could heave a sigh of relief, his expression changed. Because a few long roars came from afar. These long roars pierced through the clouds like thunder and rolled over. It was obvious that they were top experts. It was obvious that these long roars were in response to the barbarian prodigy just now. There were barbarian experts nearby who heard the barbarian prodigies roar and rushed over. Lu Ming's expression was a little ugly. It was not difficult to tell from the long roars that those who were rushing over were definitely extremely powerful experts. If a few more came, Lu Ming would be in danger. Qiu, hurry up. Lu Ming roared in his heart. Moreover, Lu Ming did not know that divine lords could not enter. If the other party sent a divine lord, he would be finished. No matter how strong his cultivation was, he would probably be killed by a divine lord with one slap. The roars rose and fell. When they did not hear any response, they became even more furious and became more and more violent. The speed of the people was extremely fast. In a few breaths' time, a few rainbow lights appeared in front of them. Then, the rainbow lights faded and a few barbarians appeared. These barbarians were all old. Their hair was snow-white and their faces were full of wrinkles. However, the aura on their bodies was extremely terrifying. It pressed down on Lu Ming like an avalanche. Peak Divine Kings. Lu Ming muttered. His gaze was solemn, and he did not dare to be careless. There was a saying in the underworld that one should not underestimate the young and the old. If the young had a high cultivation, they were usually prodigies. Their combat strength could not be measured by their cultivation. As for the old ones, they had cultivated for countless years. All kinds of secret skills and divine skills had been cultivated to an extremely high level. Their combat strength was definitely not weak. The old barbarians scanned the scene. When they saw the corpses of the barbarians, their eyes were filled with killing intent. Especially when they saw the prodigy of the barbarian tribe. The old barbarians were extremely furious. Manjia, you killed Manjia. Boy, I want you to die with him. An old barbarian roared. His old face was filled with ferocity. Manjia, in terms of talent, was the best in the barbarian tribe. His future was limitless. But now he was dead. It was a great loss. Bang, bang, bang. A total of 3 old barbarians stepped out and appeared in 3 directions. They surrounded Lu Ming. Boy, I want you to suffer a fate worse than death. In front of them was an old man in a red robe. His eyes were cold and blood-red. His body flashed and a blood-red saber appeared in his hand. He slashed towards Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming was still in the state of the blue-armored ancient god. He waved the overbearing god spear and swept it over. Dong! There was a loud roar, stirring up the energy in the air. Lu Ming felt a gush of terrifying energy surging toward him. His body shook violently, and he could not help but retreat continuously. His arm felt numb. Divine Power Origin Factor, Third Awakening. Lu Ming could not help but exclaim. His eyes were extremely solemn. The old barbarian's Divine Power Origin Factor had actually awakened 3 times. He was a peak Divine King, and his Divine Power Origin Factor had awakened 3 times. This was terrifying. He was 4 levels higher than Lu Ming. His combat strength would be extremely shocking. Boom. Boom. On the side, the other 2 old barbarians also attacked Lu Ming. Lu Ming shouted and tried his best to resist. He exchanged a few blows with the 2 old barbarians. After a few blows, Lu Ming's body retreated once again. His chest was swept by one of the old barbarians' saber radiance. The hard blue scales broke and blood flowed out continuously. Terrifying, extremely terrifying. The other 2 old barbarians had actually awakened 3 times their Divine Power Origin Factors. Chapter 3386. The 3 barbarian tribe elders were all at the peak Divine King realm. Moreover, they were all existences who had awakened 3 times. They already had the qualifications to break through to the Divine Lord realm. They were absolutely terrifying. In fact, the barbarian tribe had sent out many such elders who already had the qualifications to break through to the Divine Lord realm. They were only a step away from the Divine Lord realm. However, they were too old and their vitality was depleted. They didn't have enough potential, and it was difficult for them to break through. However, it was undeniable that their strength was extremely terrifying. They were almost at the peak of the Divine King realm. Unless one was a top genius, it would be difficult to fight against them. They were 4 levels higher than Lu Ming, and their Divine Origin Force Factor had awakened thrice. Their combat strength was definitely above that of the barbarian tribe's genius. Even if Lu Ming gave it his all, it would be difficult for him to deal with one of them, let alone three of them. Lu Ming was in danger. Kill! 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 With three consecutive roars, the three barbarian tribe elders attacked at the same time. Two rays of saber gleams and a palm print blasted toward Lu Ming. Although they were not secret skills of the origin, they were still terrifying secret skills. They had been cultivated to the peak and their power was not much weaker than that of the origin. Ice Chain's Yinyang Eye, Gate of Domination. Lu Ming roared. At this moment, Lu Ming used all his strength to increase his combat strength to the maximum. He used all kinds of secret techniques at once. Fortunately, he had the quantifying character formula and didn't need to worry about divine power. Otherwise, the divine power in his body would definitely be sucked dry. Boom, boom, boom. Lu Ming's various secret techniques were pushed to the maximum to resist the attacks of the three barbarian tribe elders. The Gate of Domination blocked a blade light. The Moon of Moon and Sun of Sun blasted towards another blade light. Lu Ming held the Tyrant God Spear and clashed with the third barbarian tribe elder 7 or 8 times. However, the three elders were too strong. The Gate of Domination shook and a crack appeared on it. It was directly sent flying. As for the lunar moon and the lunar sun, the multicolored light of the lunar sun was split apart by the saber and also sent flying. Lu Ming himself was sent flying for thousands of miles by the powerful palm energy. The blood in his body was in turmoil, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Lu Ming was no match for him. He was at a disadvantage. However, the three old berserkers were also incredibly shocked. For origin source secret techniques, this kid actually knows 4 origin source secret techniques. No wonder he could kill Manjia. This kind of person can't be left alive. Kill. The three old men once again charged towards Lu Ming, unleashing terrifying attacks. Lu Ming could only resist with all his might. However, he was no match for him and did not have much strength to fight back. Puff! Puff! After exchanging a few blows, Lu Ming's body was swept by 2 saber lights. His blue scales fluttered, and his body was almost split open. But before Lu Ming could react, another saber light slashed at Lu Ming. Lu Ming hurriedly retreated and used the Lord's door to block. Clang! The Sovereign's gate shook violently, and more cracks appeared on its surface. Then with a boom it exploded. With his source secret technique broken, Lu Ming suffered a backlash. He spat out a mouthful of blood, his face pale. "This is troublesome," Lu Ming muttered. Could it be that he had to take out the purple copper coffin again? That was a way to perish together with his opponent. Lu Ming would not use it unless he had no other choice. Before Lu Ming could think further, the three old men attacked Lu Ming again. They wanted to kill Lu Ming in one go. At this moment, a dazzling light suddenly erupted from a direction. Huge lightning bolts that were thicker than a person's waist rushed towards them. They were mainly aimed at the three old berserkers. Qiu. Lu Ming was delighted. This attack was obviously from Qiu. It seemed that Qiu had finally woken up at this critical moment. The three old men were shocked. They gave up attacking Lu Ming and blocked the lightning bolts. With a series of explosions, the three old men trembled and couldn't help but retreat as if they had been electrocuted. "I'm coming." Then, a tender voice rang out. Qiu turned into a metal ball and rushed over. 2 sabers stretched out from his body and slashed towards the 3 barbarians' faces. Each of the sabers was accompanied by lightning. They were very fast. In an instant, hundreds of sabers had been slashed. The 3 old men didn't dare to be careless. They blocked the sabers continuously and fought with Qiu. Peak of the 8th layer of the Divine King realm. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Qiu's cultivation had indeed evolved and reached the peak of the 8th layer of the Divine King realm. His strength had improved even more. He was able to fight the 3 old berserkers who had awakened 3 times by himself. Kill. Lu Ming attacked. All kinds of secret techniques were thrown at one of the old berserkers like a storm. With Lu Ming's help, the 3 old men were finally at a disadvantage and were suppressed. /// Qiu didn't care about his defense and attacked with all his might. The attacks of the 3 old berserkers didn't cause any harm to Qiu. In this way, Qiuqiu's strength became stronger. Each of his sabers was accompanied by lightning. The lightning also had a paralyzing effect. After clashing with Qiuqiu, the three old berserkers felt a little numb and their speed slowed down. Inyang Godai. Lu Ming activated his Inyang Godai with all his might. It turned into rune threads and wrapped around one of the old berserkers. The old berserker roared and resisted with all his might. He was a peak divine king, and had awakened his divine power 3 times. His divine power had become too strong. It was filled with an ancient aura and was invincible. Divine power surged and bombarded the Yin and Yang talisman threads. The Yin and Yang talisman threads were blocked by the dense divine power, and couldn't get close to him. Lu Ming immediately controlled the sun of the sun and moon of the moon to attack the old man. The destructive light made the old man's divine power tremble. At this moment, Qiuqiu slashed and broke the old man's divine power. Lu Ming seized the opportunity, and the yin-yang rune thread seeped in and wrapped around the old man's body. The old berserker was too old and had lost blood. Although his divine power was strong, his divine body couldn't take it anymore. He didn't have much defensive power and was cut into 2 by the yin-yang rune threads. He let out a furious roar, and his upper body retreated rapidly in an attempt to escape. "Don't even think about leaving," Lu Ming shouted and circulated his immemorial dragon power. A bugle horn that looked like a dragon horn appeared. This was Lu Ming's 5th origin secret technique. It was formed by the immemorial dragon power, and was hollow. It looked like a bugle horn and a scimitar. This secret technique was called the immemorial divine dragon bugle horn. Lu Ming didn't know what it was used for, so he rarely used it. In a moment of desperation, Lu Ming used it. In a moment of desperation, Lu Ming used the immemorial divine dragon bugle horn as a scimitar. With a thought, the immemorial divine dragon bugle horn turned into a ray of light and slashed at the old berserker. The immemorial divine dragon bugle horn was like an invincible divine blade. With a slash, the old berserker's head was split into 2 and his body and soul were destroyed. Chapter 3387. Not bad. Lu Ming smiled. Of course, this was only effective because the barbarian elder was severely injured. Otherwise, how could the primordial mystical dragon horn kill him so easily? After killing 1 barbarian elder, the remaining 2 barbarians were no match for Qiuqiu and retreated frantically. As for Lu Ming, he charged forward again. Retreat. Although the 2 barbarian elders were indignant, they knew that they could no longer kill Lu Ming. If they stayed any longer, they would probably die as well. Hence, they wanted to retreat. The 2 of them threw out a few blows with all their might before retreating rapidly. Given the strength of the 2 barbarian elders, even Qiuqiu would not be able to stop them if they were bent on escaping. They could only watch helplessly as the other party fled. After all, without an overwhelming advantage in strength and with the other party bent on escaping, it was difficult to make them stay. Qiuqiu wanted to give chase, but Lu Ming hurriedly called out to Qiuqiu. Moreover, there was no telling how many experts of the barbarian race had come. If he gave chase and ended up being entangled by even more experts, even Qiuqiu would be in danger if even stronger experts came. The best plan was to leave this place as soon as possible. Lu Ming took the storage rings of the barbarians without hesitation and left with Qiuqiu. Along the way, Qiuqiu told him that the broken sword that it had swallowed earlier had not been completely digested, and there was still a lot left. However, when it saw that Lu Ming was in danger, it helped Lu Ming as soon as it broke through and interrupted the evolution. If it could digest the remaining broken sword, Qiuqiu's strength would improve even further. Continue digesting then and break through as soon as possible. I'll be careful from now on, Lu Ming said to Qiuqiu. As long as he was careful, he could still protect himself if he fled the moment he discovered the barbarians. Qiuqiu nodded and turned back into a bracelet on Lu Ming's wrist to continue digesting the broken sword. Lu Ming looked in front of him. The door in that direction had become even more blurry, and was faintly discernible. What on earth is there? Lu Ming muttered. He was still curious. He retracted his aura and continued flying toward the gate. However, Lu Ming did not soar into the sky. Instead, He flew along the ground to avoid being discovered by the barbarians. In the next few days, Lu Ming did run into some barbarians. However, Lu Ming discovered them in advance and avoided them. The barbarians didn't discover him. Several days later, Lu Ming arrived at the foot of a mountain range. Up ahead, there were endless mountain ranges and peaks that towered into the clouds. It was unknown just how many there were. As for the door, it seemed to be in the depths of the mountain range. At the bottom of the mountain range, there was a stone staircase that led upwards. The staircase was enormous, as if it were the staircase of a giant. Furthermore, it looked extremely ancient and was filled with the aura of time. Lu Ming pondered for a moment. He then walked up the stairs and went all the way up. After a few thousand steps, they reached the end of the flight of stairs. A flat ground appeared, and in front of the flat ground was a huge cliff. On the cliff, there were some strange carvings. Even from a distance, Lu Ming could still feel a strange aura. Under this aura, he felt as if he was sitting cross-legged under the primordial statue, comprehending the divine power of origin. However, the aura here gave him a feeling that it was purer than the primordial statue, and the effect was better. Lu Ming's heart palpitated. This cliff was extraordinary. It was definitely an opportunity. Lu Ming no longer hesitated and strode forward. However, just as he took a step forward, Guemo hurriedly shouted, "Be careful, don't go forward." Unfortunately, it was too late. Lu Ming had already taken a step forward. Buzz. When Lu Ming took a step forward, the entire flat ground suddenly emitted a bright light, and endless runes appeared. The endless runes condensed into a huge battle sword and slashed at Lu Ming. Lu Ming was shocked. Without time to think, the divine power in his body erupted. The tyrant god spear condensed and blocked in front of him. Boom. The huge sword slashed on the tyrant god spear. The tyrant god spear shook violently, and cracks appeared on it. A terrifying force was transmitted into Lu Ming's hand. Lu Ming's arms shook violently, and cracking sounds could be heard. His bones were broken. This force caused Lu Ming's body to explosively retreat, and he landed on a flight of stairs. His face turned pale, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He was injured by the attack just now. What a terrifying array. Lu Ming's face turned solemn. Just now, it was fortunate that Guemo had reminded him. He subconsciously circulated his divine power, and was able to accumulate enough power to block the attack. Otherwise, he might have been killed by the sword. Lu Ming wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His injuries were not serious. With his terrifying recovery ability, he quickly recovered. Lu Ming stepped forward again, and came to the side of the flat ground. This time, he did not dare to step in. At this time, the runes on the flat ground disappeared again, and he could not see the slightest clue. This array is very mysterious, and it has been set up for a long time. There are no fluctuations at all. Even I could not see it before. Guemo said. Guemo, is there any way to break it? Lu Ming asked. The cliff in front was very mysterious. Lu Ming felt that it would be of great use to him, and he did not want to miss it. Let me take a closer look, Guemo said. After saying that, he flew out from Lu Ming's sea of consciousness. Light flickered in his two eye sockets as he stared at the flat ground. Just like that, he spent an entire day looking at it. I can see it. Gumo's voice sounded. Is it possible to break it? Lu Ming quickly asked. Yes, but I need something from you, Guemo said. Something from me? What is it? Lu Ming was surprised. Your blood, Guemo said. My blood? Is it useful to break the array? Lu Ming was even more curious. That's right. If I'm not wrong, this place is related to the primordial divine spirit. I'm referring to the entire world that you came from. It's filled with the aura of ancient desolation. It's very similar to the legendary place where the primordial divine spirit was born. The cliff in front of you, and this array are also related to the primordial divine spirit. You have the heart of an ancient god, and the ancient god is also a member of the primordial divine spirit. With your blood, not only can you break this array, but you can also control it and enter it freely, Guemo explained. The place where the primordial divine spirit was born? Lu Ming was dumbfounded. He was extremely shocked. Guemo did not explain further and said, "I'll teach you the method to break the array. Remember it." Then Guemo told Lu Ming the detailed method to break the array. After Lu Ming memorized it, he carefully analyzed it to avoid missing anything. This was not a joke. This array was extraordinary. If he missed something, it would be related to his life. After repeating it a few times in his heart to make sure that it was foolproof, Lu Ming began to act. Circulating his divine force, he made a small cut on his fingertip, and a wisp of blood flew out. Then Lu Ming waved his finger. The wisp of blood turned into a mysterious rune in Lu Ming's hand and flew to a corner of the flat ground. Chapter 3388. Under the Bone Devil's guidance, Lu Ming used his own blood to condense a rune that flew to a corner of the flat ground. When the rune landed, that corner burst out with a dazzling radiance as runes appeared. These runes were originally purple, but they were quickly infected by the runes condensed by Lu Ming and turned blood red. After flickering a few times, those runes disappeared without a trace. "It's really effective." Lu Ming was delighted. He had a feeling that the runes in that corner of the flat ground were already under his control. Next, Lu Ming forced out even more blood. Blood constantly flew out and turned into blood-red runes. They flew to various parts of the flat ground. Just like the first time, every time Lu Ming's runes landed on the flat ground, more runes would appear. However, they would be infected by Lu Ming's runes and turn blood-red before disappearing under Lu Ming's control. Lu Ming's speed was extremely fast. A moment later, Lu Ming had condensed a total of 999 runes. Finally, he had completely covered the flat ground. All the runes were under his control. If it was an ordinary person who had lost so much blood, they would have already bled to death. However, Lu Ming had the ancient god's heart. The ancient god's heart was constantly producing blood. Lu Ming's blood was abundant to the extreme, so there was no problem at all. "Rise!" Lu Ming shouted. He raised one hand, and the flat ground trembled slightly. Then a huge battle sword was condensed and floated in the air. Lu Ming took a step forward and stepped onto the flat ground. This time, it was different from the first time. The battle sword didn't move and didn't attack Lu Ming. "Haha, it really is under my control. It's not bad to stay here and cultivate." Lu Ming smiled. With a thought, the array in the air dissipated. The runes on the ground disappeared as well. One could not tell that there was anything strange about it. Lu Ming didn't stop. He went to the bottom of the cliff and looked at it carefully. On the cliff, there were several engravings that emitted mysterious fluctuations. They were ancient and mysterious, as if they were the source of everything. Lu Ming sat cross-legged and began to carefully comprehend. As soon as he comprehended it, the feeling became even stronger. It was as if it was the source of all divine powers. Lu Ming could easily comprehend any type of divine power and obtain great benefits. "Amazing, amazing." Lu Ming sighed. Then he closed his eyes and began to meditate. The first thing he comprehended was the sun god power. Lu Ming had already awakened the sun divine power 3 times. However, he had not awakened the sun divine power 3 times. He was only at the peak of 2 awakenings. He was still a hair away from 3 awakenings. After only 3 days of cultivation, Lu Ming was suddenly enlightened. With a flash of inspiration, his body was filled with a powerful and ancient aura. At the same time, a sun appeared above Lu Ming's head, shining brilliantly. Sun God power, the source of divine power, 3rd awakening. Lu Ming didn't expect that he would break through in just 3 days. "The effect of this cliff is many times better than my primordial god statue. It's really amazing." Lu Ming exclaimed. That's not right. Why do the engravings on the cliff feel a little shallower?" Suddenly, Lu Ming was stunned. He felt that the engravings on the cliff were a little shallower than before. Although it was only a little, Lu Ming's spiritual perception was so sharp that he could feel any subtle difference. He couldn't be wrong. "You're right. The engravings on the cliff have indeed become a little shallower." Guemo added. "Could it be related to my cultivation?" Lu Ming guessed. "That's right. As you comprehend, the engravings will become shallower. When the engravings completely disappear, the cliff will be useless to you." Guemo said. It's no longer useful to me? Lu Ming was stunned. That's right. If I'm not wrong, everyone who comes here to cultivate has a time limit. After you finish cultivating the engravings on the cliff, others might still be able to see the engravings. Everyone sees different things, Guillermo said. Of course, he was just speculating. However, Guillermo was experienced and knowledgeable. His speculations were generally similar. I see. Then I will have to speed up my cultivation, Lu Ming said. After saying that, Lu Ming closed his eyes and continued to comprehend. The carvings on the cliff were related to the primordial divine spirit, so they were of great use in comprehending the divine power of origin or secret techniques of origin. For other things, they were not of much use. For example, comprehending other divine skills was not of much use. After the third awakening of the sun god power, Lu Ming switched to comprehending the immemorial dragon force. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 days had passed. Lu Ming had made great progress every day. It could be said that he was advancing at a tremendous pace. On this day, when Lu Ming was cultivating in peace, a group of figures came to the stairs. These figures were all from the barbarian tribe. There were more than 50 of them. There were young, middle-aged, and old barbarians. However, these people seemed to be led by a young man. They surrounded him in the middle. This young man was called Manku. He was known as the strongest god king of the barbarian tribe. He was a peerless genius who was even more outstanding than Manjia. As soon as they reached the top of the stairs, they saw Lu Ming. This kid is the ant from the Taishu dynasty. One of the old barbarian tribe members shouted. This old barbarian tribe member was one of the 3 old barbarian tribe members who besieged Lu Ming some time ago. In that battle, Lu Ming cooperated with Qiuqiu to kill an old barbarian tribe member. The other 2 old barbarian tribe members escaped. Now the 2 old barbarian tribe members who escaped back then were here. They recognized Lu Ming as soon as they saw him. Ant from the Taishu dynasty. Very good. I didn't expect to meet you here. Manku's eyes were cold and murderous. But then his eyes flashed. He discovered something extraordinary about the cliff. He looked at the cliff carefully. The more he looked at it, the more extraordinary it seemed. The blood in his body was restless. This cliff is related to the primordial divine spirit. It can help people cultivate and comprehend the origin divine power factor and origin secret arts. An old barbarian tribe member exclaimed. His eyes were burning with passion. The other barbarians also stared at the cliff with burning eyes. Ha ha ha, this is a great opportunity. Cultivating under the cliff will definitely improve rapidly. We can also kill the ant from the Taishu dynasty. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Manku laughed. The arrival of the barbarians naturally alarmed Lu Ming. Lu Ming stopped cultivating and looked at the barbarians. There are so many of them. Seeing more than 50 barbarians, Lu Ming's eyes flashed. He was not afraid. Instead, killing intent flashed in his eyes. He was thinking about how to use the array on the flat ground to kill all the barbarians. Kid, let's see how you die this time. An old barbarian tribe member shouted in a cold voice. So it's you, old man. What's wrong? You ran away last time and luckily escaped with your life. Now you're here to die. This time, I won't let you escape. Lu Ming smiled faintly. Chapter 3389. You won't let me escape? Brat, if you weren't relying on that metallic life form, I could have killed you with 1 slap. The old barbarian shouted. A loser like you can only flaunt your mouth. Lu Ming said casually. Then he swept his gaze across the other barbarians and said, You guys are here for the carvings on the cliff, right? Let me tell you. These carvings can help you comprehend the divine origin force factor and the secret arts of the origin force. I have only comprehended them for a dozen days, and my divine origin force has gone from the 2nd awakening to the 3rd awakening. After Lu Ming finished speaking, a sun appeared in his palm. A rich and ancient aura spread out. This was the divine power of the sun. The 3rd awakening of the divine origin force factor is real. This brat has mastered several kinds of divine powers. When we fought with him some time ago, his divine power was only at the 2nd awakening. Now it has really reached the 3rd awakening. An elderly barbarian who had fought with Lu Ming previously yelled. He was very shocked. But his eyes were burning. What? From the second awakening to the third awakening in a dozen days? This ability. Hearing the old barbarian's words, the other barbarian's eyes were burning. Especially Man Ku. The light in his eyes was so bright that it could reach as far as 10 meters. He had invincible confidence and firmly believed that his talent was much higher than Lu Ming's. If Lu Ming could make such great progress in a dozen days, then he would definitely gain more from comprehending the carvings. It would allow his strength to reach a higher level. But don't even think about getting it. I will destroy it. Ha ha ha. Lu Ming laughed crazily. Then he turned around and rushed towards the cliff. He punched out as if he wanted to destroy the cliff. Of course, all of this was an act by Lu Ming. At first, he talked about the benefits of the cliff, and then crazily wanted to destroy the cliff. He pretended that he was forced into a desperate situation, and wanted to destroy the cliff so that the barbarians would not be able to get it. In this way, the barbarians would believe him. Sure enough, seeing Lu Ming rushing towards the cliff, the barbarians were shocked. This brat wants to destroy the cliff. Even if he dies, he won't let us get it. He purposely revealed the use of the cliff to piss us off. Damn it, stop him. The barbarians roared. Attack, attack together, kill without mercy. Man Ku roared and dashed out, pouncing toward Lu Ming. The other berserkers did the same. The moment Lu Ming moved, they moved as well. They turned into dozens of rays of light and charged towards Lu Ming. More than 50 barbarians rushed towards Lu Ming. In the blink of an eye, they had reached the flat ground. Success! Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He purposely pretended to destroy the cliff in order to attract all the barbarians into the range of the formation. If he didn't do so, the other party might only send out a small group of people to kill him. In that case, even if he controlled the formation, he would only be able to kill a small group of barbarians, and the rest would still be scared away. This was not what he wanted. What he wanted was to kill all the barbarians in one fell swoop. Sure enough, these barbarians had all rushed into the range of the formation. This was within Lu Ming's expectations. Rise! Lu Ming's dashing figure stopped abruptly. With a thought, densely packed runes suddenly appeared in all directions on the flat ground. Endless runes filled the air and intertwined to form a large formation. A giant sword condensed above Lu Ming's head. Lu Ming grabbed it in his hand and slashed out with the sword. A vast sword chi slashed out violently. A few barbarians bore the brunt of the sword chi, and were cut into pieces before they could even scream. Then the destructive sword chi rampaged through their broken bodies, tearing their bodies apart and obliterating their souls. After killing a few barbarians, Lu Ming did not stop. He waved the giant sword and slashed out again. Puff puff, blood splattered in all directions. A few more barbarians were killed. All of this happened in an instant. More than 10 barbarians had already died in Lu Ming's hands. It's a formation. Damn it, it's a formation. Why is there a formation here? This kid is controlling the formation. Retreat. The barbarians were frightened and shouted. They wanted to retreat and get out of the range of the formation. They knew that they had been tricked. Lu Ming had no intention of destroying the cliff. He had done so to lure them into the range of the formation. From the beginning, they had been led by the nose by Lu Ming. You want to retreat? It's too late. Lu Ming pressed down with one hand. The runes on the flat ground flourished and condensed into even more tiny sword chi, killing everything in its path. Some of the weaker barbarians had their bodies pierced through like a hornet's nest, and died a violent death. Out of more than 50 barbarians, only a dozen of the stronger barbarians were left. They blocked the tiny sword chi, and resisted with all their might. Old man, didn't you want to kill me? Come on. Lu Ming held a huge sword in his hand and fixed his eyes on an old barbarian. He charged toward the old barbarian. This old barbarian was the one who shouted the most fiercely. What's the point of relying on the formation? If you have the ability, remove the formation and fight. The old barbarian roared. You have so many people besieging me, and you still have the cheek to say that. You're really shameless. I'll send you on your way. Lu Ming sneered and slashed down with his giant sword. Ah! The old barbarian roared. He used all his strength and erupted with all his potential to block the attack. He clashed with the giant sword. However, the old barbarian screamed miserably. He could not block the attack at all. Half of his body exploded. He was seriously injured and was half dead. "Save me!" The old barbarian roared in horror. However, no one cared about him. The others could not even protect themselves and were desperately attacking the formation. Who would save him? They all hoped that he could block Lu Ming for a while longer, so that they could buy more time. "No one will save you. Go on your way," Lu Ming said coldly and slashed with his sword. "No." The old barbarian roared in despair. Then he was drowned by the giant sword and turned into ashes. After killing the old barbarian, Lu Ming did not stop and charged toward the other barbarians. At this moment, Lu Ming's strength had reached an astonishing level under the support of the formation. Even the old barbarian was killed by him in 2 moves. Puff puff. Lu Ming crushed his way through and killed a few more barbarian experts. There were less than 10 barbarians left. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it happened in a few breaths. "Let's fight him together and retreat at the same time. Otherwise we'll all die," Man Ku roared. "You talk too much. Then I'll kill you first," Lu Ming said coldly and charged toward Man Ku with his sword. He naturally did not know that Man Ku was the strongest divine king of the barbarian race. However, when he realized that Man Ku was about to break out of the formation, Lu Ming was shocked. He charged toward Man Ku without hesitation. Man Ku was frightened when he saw Lu Ming charging toward him. He roared, "Barbarian god body, barbarian sword." Man Ku roared and his body expanded rapidly to 1,000 meters tall. Chapter 3390. Man Ku roared as he turned into a 1,000-meter-tall giant. This was the barbarian god body. Lu Ming had seen Man Jie use it before. However, Man Ku's barbarian god body was slightly different from Man Jie's. Man Ku's body was still covered with a layer of rock armor. However, this rock armor was crystal clear and had a luster flowing on it. It seemed to be of a higher grade. At the same time, he held a giant bronze sword that was a few hundred meters long. This was his ultimate secret technique. Man Ku roared as he slashed down with the giant bronze sword. Wherever the sword passed, the tiny sword chi would explode. Dong! Man Ku's giant bronze sword clashed with the giant sword formed by Lu Ming's array. A terrifying sound rang out as countless sword chi shot out in all directions. Then, Man Ku's body shook violently as he retreated. The tiny sword chi seized the opportunity to pierce Man Ku's body. However, the sound of metal clashing could be heard as sparks flew in all directions. What a powerful force! Lu Ming was shocked. Once they exchanged blows, he realized that Man Ku's strength was shocking. His cultivation had already reached the peak divine king realm. Moreover, his divine origin force factor had already awakened 4 times. Moreover, he had mastered the ultimate secret technique. His combat strength was heaven-defying. Those old barbarian tribe members were far inferior to him. If Lu Ming did not rely on the array, he would definitely not be Man Ku's opponent. The difference was too great. "I must get rid of him," Lu Ming said in his heart. He then gathered all the power of the array and waved his giant sword, launching a barrage of attacks at Man Ku. Clang! 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 Man Ku roared as he waved his giant bronze sword and fought with Lu Ming. After every strike, Man Ku retreated as his body trembled. After a dozen strikes, cracks appeared on his bronze sword, and it looked like it would explode at any time. Blood kept flowing out of his mouth. Obviously, he was severely injured from the continuous attacks. As Lu Ming controlled all the power of the array to deal with Man Ku, he did not have much power to deal with the other barbarians. At this moment, the other barbarians had already rushed out of the array's range. "Man Ku, come out. We'll help you," the barbarians who had rushed out roared. All of them worked together and blasted a move into the formation, opening up a path behind Man Ku. "Don't even think about leaving. Die." Lu Ming bellowed coldly as he controlled the array with all his might. Countless runes glowed and were extremely dazzling. Countless tiny sword auras gathered in the huge sword in Lu Ming's hands, causing the huge sword in Lu Ming's hands to become even larger. Whoosh! The huge sword slashed down towards Manku, wanting to cut him into two. Manku roared as he brandished his bronze greatsword to defend himself. Clang! The two of them collided once more. But this time, Manku's battle sword began to vibrate crazily. More and more cracks appeared on its surface, covering the entire sword. Then with a bang it exploded, sending fragments flying everywhere. Manku coughed out large mouthfuls of blood, and his injuries worsened. With the help of Lu Ming's strength, he retreated rapidly. He then turned around abruptly and dashed toward the passageway opened by the other barbarians. He wanted to escape from the range of the array. Kill! Lu Ming shouted. How could he let Manku escape so easily? He waved his hand, and the huge sword in his hand flew out. It was like a rainbow as it stabbed towards Manku. Its speed was too fast, and it instantly caught up to Manku and stabbed into his back. With a clang, the huge sword seemed to have stabbed into steel. Manku's stone armor directly shattered, and a large hole appeared in his body. Blood, flesh, and bones flew everywhere. Manku staggered and almost fell to the ground. However, he roared and forcefully endured it. He continued to rush forward and finally rushed into the passageway. His figure flashed as he rushed out of the range of the grand formation and landed on a flight of stairs. The moment he landed on the stairs, he coughed up large mouthfuls of blood, and his aura weakened. Manku, the remaining barbarians were shocked. Manku's talent was too strong, and nothing must happen to him. Otherwise, it would be a great loss to the barbarian race. I'm fine. Protect me. Manku coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood, and his body shrunk to its normal size. He then took out a divine healing pill and stuffed it into his mouth, and started to refine it. The other barbarians surrounded Manku. It's a pity that we still couldn't kill him. Lu Ming sighed. At the same time he was shocked. Manku's strength was really shocking. He was definitely stronger than Manjia in a battle of the same level. Moreover, his cultivation had reached the peak divine king realm, and his divine origin force had awakened for the fourth time. In addition to his origin secret technique, barbarian god body, and other divine skills and secret techniques, his combat strength was incomparably terrifying. He had actually forced his way out of the formation and escaped with his life. With Lu Ming's current strength, there was still a huge gap between him and Manku. Now that Manku had escaped from the array's range, Lu Ming could not kill him. Brat, come out and fight me if you dare. A barbarian glared at Lu Ming and roared. Come in and fight me if you dare. Lu Ming said flatly. Humph, if you don't want to come out, then we'll guard here, and make sure you never come out. A barbarian said viciously. If you want to guard me, then so be it. I'm going to cultivate. Lu Ming smiled, and then went to the cliff. He sat down cross-legged and started to comprehend quietly. He could not be bothered with the barbarians. The barbarians were so angry that their faces turned green. They wished they could cut Lu Ming into pieces. However, they did not dare to charge into the array and fight with Lu Ming. They had escaped from the array's range with great difficulty, and they definitely would not step into the array's range again. Manku's injuries were very serious. Even with his physique, it took him a month to recover. After he recovered, he stared coldly at Lu Ming. His murderous intent was extremely strong. Especially when he saw Lu Ming cultivating under the cliff, he was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. Unfortunately, he was on flat ground. Even if he stared at the cliff, it did not have much effect. It seemed that he had to climb to flat ground to comprehend. Can you guys break this formation? Manku asked the other barbarians. We've been looking at it carefully for the past month, but this array is very ancient. The way it was set up is strange and mysterious. We can't break it. An old barbarian shook his head and said, Can't break it? Then send a message to gather the others. Let's see if we can break it. Manku said. He was unwilling to leave just like that. Firstly, he wanted to kill Lu Ming. Secondly, he wanted to get the cliff. Then a barbarian took out a communication jade talisman and started to send messages. You can send messages? At this moment, Lu Ming finished his cultivation. He stood on flat ground and looked down at Manku and the others. So what? Boy, if you can send a message, ask your friends to come and save you. Manku sneered. Chapter 3391. Lu Ming ignored Manku and frowned. The barbarian tribe could send voice transmissions, but why did it not work on Blue Merchant? Could it be that Blue Merchant and the rest were too far away from him? Or was it blocked by something? Lu Ming thought of many things. Kid, don't think that you can be foolproof just because you have an array. When the array masters of the barbarian tribe arrive, I'll see how you die. Manku sneered and his killing intent was ferocious. Then I'll wait. Lu Ming ignored Manku and went to the bottom of the cliff to comprehend. Now he needed to increase his strength as soon as possible. If the array was really broken, he would still have the strength to fight back. A few days later, the barbarian tribe came. Then more barbarian tribe members came every day. A month later, there were hundreds of barbarian tribe members. However, these barbarian tribe members studied carefully and shook their heads in the end. They could not do anything about the array. Upon seeing this, Lu Ming felt more at ease. It seemed that the barbarian tribe could not break the array. Moreover, these barbarian tribe members are all below the Sir God level. I don't see any Sir God. Could it be that no Sir God can come in? Lu Ming could not help guessing. During this period of time, the barbarian tribe members he met were all below the Sir God level. Logically speaking, after Lu Ming killed so many barbarian tribe members, the barbarian tribe would have gone mad and sent a Sir God to kill Lu Ming. Although the array was mysterious, its power was limited. If a Sir God really came, Lu Ming would not be able to withstand it. However, until now, there were no Sir Gods from the barbarian tribe. Lu Ming was almost certain that the Sir Gods could not enter. That's strange. Wan Shun is also a Sir God. How did he come in? Could it be that this world is related to the primordial divine spirits, and Wan Shun evolved from dozens of different primordial divine spirits' blood essences? Lu Ming could not help but make such a guess when he thought of Wan Shun. Damn it! Outside the formation, Manku roared in rage as he glared hatefully at Lu Ming. He wanted nothing more than to charge in and kill Lu Ming, but he didn't dare to. He was extremely anxious. There were so many barbarians, but they could not break this damned array. Didn't you want to break this formation? Come on, I'm waiting. Lu Ming guessed that the other Sir Gods couldn't enter, so he became even more fearless. From time to time, he would mock them, which made Manku and the others so angry that they saw stars. Brat, if you have the ability, stay in there and never come out for the rest of your life. Manku roared. All right, since I'm here, I'm making rapid progress every day. I'll just treat it as seclusion. Seclusion for millions of years isn't too bad either. Lu Ming smiled faintly and continued to cultivate. Creak, Manku clenched his teeth so hard that they creaked. He was really angry. Indeed, for people at their level, cultivating in seclusion for hundreds of thousands, or even millions of years was not something that could be accomplished in the blink of an eye. However, Lu Ming was making progress every day. While they could only stare at him and drink the northwest wind, Manku especially found it hard to accept. He was a peerless genius and was now in his golden age. He was making rapid progress and had unlimited potential. If he were to waste hundreds of thousands of years here, his potential would be exhausted, and it would have a great impact on his future achievements. However, he was still unwilling to give up and continued to wait. In the blink of an eye, 5 years had passed. They still hadn't broken the formation, and Lu Ming was still cultivating there. Let's go, let's go. Manku roared in the end. He couldn't continue to waste time here. He felt that this world was related to the primordial divine spirit, and there might be other opportunities. He couldn't wait here. There would be plenty of opportunities to kill Lu Ming in the future. Brat, I'll let you live for a while. Just you wait, sooner or later, I'll make you suffer a fate worse than death. Manku left behind some harsh words at Lu Ming's back view. Thereafter, he led the barbarians and left dejectedly. Finally gone? Lu Ming opened his eyes and muttered. In truth, it was impossible for him to stay here for hundreds of thousands of years. This was because the marks on the cliff were becoming shallower as he comprehended them. Now in his eyes, the marks on the cliff were already very shallow. It wouldn't be long before they disappeared. However, in these 5 years, his improvement was also very shocking. In these 5 years, he had cultivated 3 different kinds of divine powers to the third awakening. In this way, Lu Ming had 7 different kinds of divine powers, and his origin divine power factor had awakened 3 times. This speed was already extremely shocking. The reason why the Sun divine power could break through in a dozen days was because it had already reached the peak of the second awakening. It was only a step away from breaking through. As for the 3 divine powers that had broken through recently, they were still very far away from the third awakening. Naturally, they wouldn't break through so quickly. To be able to break through in 5 years was already extremely shocking. It had to be known that the third awakening was a necessary condition to break through to the Divine Lord realm. Without the third awakening, it would be very difficult to break through to the Divine Lord realm. Countless people were stuck at the second awakening. After wasting 5 years, they still couldn't break through to the third awakening. To break through 3 divine powers in 5 years, it would be the envy of countless people. Lu Ming's cultivation was still at the 5th layer of the Divine King realm. However, as Lu Ming's origin divine power factor had awakened, his battle strength had also increased. The marks are getting shallower. It won't be long before they disappear. Next, I will comprehend the undying sword force. Lu Ming thought. The undying sword force was also one of the divine powers that had broken through in these 5 years. It had reached the third awakening. Moreover, Lu Ming felt that his comprehension of the undying sword force was very deep. He had a feeling that he was about to awaken an origin secret technique. This was a kind of inspiration that couldn't be missed. Lu Ming had to grasp this opportunity and comprehend it in one go. Closing his eyes and continuing to cultivate, Lu Ming placed all his thoughts on the undying sword force. 2 years later, clang! A sword chime resounded in all directions. A dazzling sword light shot up into the sky, breaking through the clouds and stirring up the wind and clouds. A stone sword floated above Lu Ming's head, emitting shocking sword chi. Origin secret technique, success. Lu Ming was overjoyed. He grabbed the stone sword with his right hand, and a name appeared in Lu Ming's mind. Void-shattering sword. This was the name of the stone sword, as well as the name of the origin secret technique. Swoosh. Lu Ming waved his hand, and the sword slashed out. The void rippled as if it was about to be cut open. What a powerful force. The void-shattering sword lives up to its name. It is similar to the void-shattering sword of the Jin family. However, its power is incomparable to the void-shattering sword of the Jin family. Lu Ming smiled and was very satisfied. This was his 6th origin source secret technique. With a thought, the void-shattering sword disappeared and Lu Ming's aura stabilized. At the same time, he looked at the cliff with a trace of pity and reluctance. The marks on the cliff had completely disappeared. Lu Ming continued to cultivate. As expected, he didn't have that feeling anymore. These marks were very helpful to his cultivation. It was a pity that he couldn't cultivate indefinitely. Otherwise, how much progress would he make after cultivating for tens of thousands of years? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.